It's 7 o'clock in the evening on Tuesday, December 8th, 2020. I'd like to call this meeting of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees to order. For those watching at home, we are on a split screen with just two of us in the chamber this evening, Fiscal Officer Baker and myself. And so I will go to Fiscal Officer Baker to call the attendance roll for the trustee.
Mr. Rajgopal.
I don't see him on my screen.
I think I just saw Raj come in through a phone line. I don't know, Jackie, if you can unmute that phone line.
I'm trying. I've sent him a message to unmute.
Yes. Mr. Rajgopal.
So just tell him to talk through it.
Yeah, here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Raj is here.
Mr. Unger.
Here.
Mr. Waller.
Here.
I'd like for you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of the United States of America
and to
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice
for all.
And please join me for a moment of silent meditation. There's a lot of folks in our community that are struggling right now with the job losses and with the economic slowdown and the mandates to run businesses at 50% and the other different attempted things to help get the COVID to move along. And just please keep in mind that your neighbor, you don't know what their situation is, and you go over and see how they're doing, and keep an eye on your friends and on our senior citizens. And I'd ask that we keep them in our thoughts and prayers. Amen. And that'll bring us to the next item, which is the Fiscal Officer Jeff Baker.
Thank you, Board. Have a few minutes that I would like to ask the Board to approve. First would be the minutes of the regular meeting on November 10th, 2020.
And I would motion that we approve the minutes from the November 10th, 2020 meeting.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote on the November 10th minutes.
Mr. Rajgopal.
Aye.
Mr. Unger.
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
And Board, I also have 3 sets of minutes from prior meetings. The reason that I'm asking the Board to approve these revised minutes is going back, looking at some of the verbiage and some of the things that could have been left out. We thought, after talking with the law director, that it might be best to reissue these minutes. Everything is the same with the exception of resolution numbers and some of the wording in the votes. So there are 3, so bear with me. The first one is a revised minutes for April 28th, 2020. 28th.
I motion that we approve the amended minutes from April 28th, 2020.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajgopal.
He's away from the camera.
Mr. Rajgopal.
Aye.
Mr. Unger.
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Secondly, and just to reiterate, these were sent via email to each trustee ahead of time so they could preview these and look at the changes. The second revised minutes that I would like the Board to approve is the minutes for the regular meeting of May 26th, 2020.
I motion that we approve the amended minutes from May 26, 2020.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? And Mr. Baker, what you did was just add language that went with some of the motions.
Correct.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
And lastly, I'd like the board to approve the revised minutes for the regular meeting on June 9th, 2020.
I would motion that we approve the revised minutes from June 9th, 2020.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
None.
Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
That's all I have, board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Our next
Thank you,
item,
Jeff.
is a presentation of the Hamilton County LEAD program, and I will ask Chief Denny to lead us into that.
Good evening, board. We have a representative from Hamilton County LEAD. This is an opportunity for the police department to partner with Hamilton County to offer a diversion program for people that we encounter that are suffering from homelessness or drug dependency or mental health issues. So they're going to give you a brief rundown of what that program is, and later in the meeting, I'm going to ask the board to approve an MOU.
Hi guys, I am from the Hamilton County Office of Reentry LEAD Project. My name is Callie Ward. I am the lead senior case manager on the project, and I am going to start the presentation here. Just to kind of give a brief overview about what LEAD is. LEAD is a pilot based on the first LEAD pilot project launched in Seattle. LEAD does stand for Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. It was a response back there in Seattle to the large amount of low-level narcotic-related offenses that were happening there. Since then, this model has kind of made its way to the Midwest, and Hamilton County is the first one to kind of launch in this area. And we do receive consultation from our National Support Bureau to ensure that the program is implemented. The county did receive a $500,000 grant, and that was awarded to the Hamilton County Addiction Response Coalition. And that grant has actually been extended through September of 2021. And Jeff, if you want to skip to slide number 4, sorry. I meant to add the cues and I wasn't able to get those saved. So there are 5 eligible offenses that are eligible to get people diverted into our program, and those are our direct diversions. And those are misdemeanor theft, unauthorized use of property, misdemeanor drug paraphernalia, and possession of drug abuse instruments, disorderly conduct, criminal damaging, and criminal trespass. And as Chief Denny said, these clients will be based on, they're struggling from substance abuse, addiction, homelessness, mental health, property, a little bit of everything. The program kind of is based around your frequent flyers, those people that you come in contact with more often than not. Next slide, please. So there are 2 different types of diversion. There is an arrest diversion, which those are correlated to the 5 offenses that I just mentioned. And there's a social contact referral. So when an officer comes in contact with somebody who has committed one of the 5 offenses, they would fill out this form and contact our screening and outreach coordinator and let them know, hey, we have somebody here that we're in contact with on scene and they're interested in getting some help. And then once that is completed and the screening and outreach coordinator is contacted, that coordinator actually meets the officer and the client on scene to complete the paperwork to meet their immediate needs. The social contact referral, you can go to the next slide, Jeff. The social contact referral, the arrest diversions kind of went through that as well. So once that is completed, the client has 30 days to follow up with us. The officer would complete the arrest forms, whatever their protocol is for Colerain. They would complete that just as if they were filing the charge, but they hold those charges and the client would have 30 days to meet with us to complete their full assessment. If the client completes the full intake, their charges are dismissed like it never happened. If the participant does not complete the full intake, then those charges are initiated and processed by the police. We can go to the next slide. And the second, the social contact referrals. This is a process of getting an individual into the program without committing an offense. They just fill out the referral form as they would the arrest diversion and send it to the case manager. And once that is approved, the case manager just meets with them. They coordinate with the officer and the client to meet and do the same assessment. So the process after we meet with them is the same as the arrest diversion. They just haven't committed an actual criminal offense. So we can go to the next slide. So kind of about the lead structure. So there are two important groups that kind of form this working group to help the project be successful. And that's the first group is a policy control group. So those are all of your people that are signatories of the memorandum of understanding, including, your city manager, the county administrator, the Addiction Response Coalition, the Officer of Solicitation or the prosecution office, your police department, your public defender, Ohio Justice and Police Policy Center, and the Office of Reentry. The PCG is responsible for approving all of the protocols and the policies and making sure that everything operationally is working and functioning. We can go to the next slide. And your working group. So these are the people that are more boots on the ground per se. So these are going to be your case managers, the department personnel, your representatives from the attorney's office, and your treatment community. They meet on a weekly basis. We go over the referrals, client progress, any new referrals that are coming in, your social contact referrals. The group just kind of gets together to make sure that everybody is on the same page and we are providing the best care to the client possible. And it's also a good way to give the police information on the client and how they're doing and what they're seeing in the community as well. We can go to the next slide. This kind of shows the structure of the LEAD project. Our program administrator, her name is Megan Gosney, and my direct supervisor is Trina Jackson. She is the director of the Office of Reentry. And then Kelsey Richardson is our screening and outreach coordinator. So she is the one who responds to those direct and warm handoffs. And then myself, I am the senior case manager, and then we will have one other spot that still needs to be filled for a case manager as part of our team. We can go to the next slide. So what does success look like? Obviously for the LEAD program, our project aims to decrease crime, calls for service, eliminate that contact for the frequent fires that you're seeing within your area, and reduce recidivism. Obviously the main goal is to keep people from going to jail. The success for the LEAD expansion and Colerain, what does that mean for you guys? We have received the data that shows that you would benefit from this, that you are seeing these low-level misdemeanor offenses. Obviously, the most important thing is that we have buy-in from the officers and leadership. And these are just kind of the data that was presented to us. So within the year, we've received, you guys had 1,550 eligible offenses or call for service within the last year. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I think that's a marvelous presentation.
Bust through that. Sorry, I talk kind of fast. So.
No, that's fine. Thank you for the presentation. Did you have any comments, Mark? Jenny?
No, we're excited to have this opportunity. This is, as you can see from the numbers, it represents a large majority of what we respond to. And if we can find a way to stop putting a Band-Aid on things and maybe cure the actual illness so we can free up some of our resources and make better use of our time.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And we'll go on to our next presentation, and I will ask Will Mueller to introduce.
The host would like you to unmic your microphone. You can press.
Good evening, board, as well as those watching virtually this evening. I'd like to introduce a new partnership for Colerain Township that will provide us an opportunity to innovatively enhance the quality of our emergency medical services to potential stroke victims in our community. The UC Health Mobile Stroke Unit is a new resource available to our community as of this year, in fact. The mobile stroke unit is an advanced stroke unit that's on the move, bringing the strength of the UC Health stroke team directly to the patient when seconds really matter most. The mobile stroke unit comes equipped with a computed tomography scanner or CT scanner to help diagnose a stroke, as well as the ability to begin treatment before the patient even arrives at the hospital. As you're aware, a stroke is a true medical emergency that can kill up to 2 million brain cells per minute and can cause permanent brain damage. Stroke can also affect many parts of the body by killing brain cells that control certain body functions. This is not new to any of us, really. The results of an untreated or undiagnosed stroke can have devastating effects on the quality of life of an individual. Currently, stroke is the 5th leading cause of death in the state of Ohio, killing approximately 6,500 people a year. So roughly 1 in 8 strokes is fatal, with about 25% of those being fatal within the first year. This new partnership will allow the mobile stroke unit to be dispatched alongside of Colerain Township Siren EMS units when 911 is summoned for a suspect stroke. This enhanced response can allow for a faster evaluation of a stroke victim by about 20 to 30 minutes. The ultimate goal is to decrease the amount of time it takes to treat a stroke victim with the necessary medications that up until now could only take place in the emergency room setting. So to talk about this a little bit further, I have the pleasure of introducing 2 key individuals responsible for the operation of this valuable resource. I'd like to introduce Julie Shaw and Dr. Chris Richards. So Julie Shaw is the Director of UC's Air Care, Mobile Care, and Emergency Department for UC Health. And Dr. Richards is the Medical Director for the Mobile Stroke Unit and an Emergency Physician at UC Health. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to them.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Chief Walls, Chief Mueller, and especially the trustees for inviting us to come in and speak with you a little bit about what we really see as an important resource to our community. I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about stroke. Chief, you spoke incredibly well on the importance of acute stroke care as well. Stroke is caused by a blockage to the blood flow to part of the brain or by bleeding in the brain. Common symptoms include the ones that you've probably heard about: the fast mnemonic, facial drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. That means it's time to call 911. Now, stroke can be treatable, but stroke treatment is very time dependent. Time when it comes to stroke is truly measured on the order of minutes. Sometimes clot busting medications can be given, and sometimes a minimally invasive surgical procedure can be performed to restore that blood flow, but it really must happen as quickly as possible. In fact, if too much time has gone by, the chance of benefit goes away, and it can actually be too risky to offer the therapies. Now, you should know that your Colerain Township Fire and EMS, EMTs, and paramedics provide excellent care to your community for patients suffering acute stroke. If you ever see them on scene, you'll know this. They perform several complex physical exam maneuvers. They are doing point of care testing for sugar level. They are calling the hospital in advance of arriving. They are transporting the patient to a stroke center. At the stroke center, CAT scans are performed. The emergency providers do an assessment. We're firing up their telestroke to get in contact with the UC Health stroke team physician. But that whole process takes time, even under the best of circumstances, with a lot of people thinking about how to improve that process. Registration, CAT scans, contact, it all takes time. Now, the mobile stroke unit is designed to speed up that evaluation process. What I like to say, and Chief mentioned this, basically bringing the stroke center to the patient's curbside. Now, the mobile stroke unit is a specialized ambulance. It has a CAT scan and a CT tech, a specially trained nurse and paramedic and EMT driver, and a virtual real-time connection with the UC Health stroke team physician through an audio connection. There's actually an iPad mounted just off where that picture was taken. This allows prompt evaluation and potential treatment. And additionally, if it's a type of stroke that needs that minimally invasive surgical procedure, or if it's that bleeding type of stroke, we'll know that once the CAT scan's performed and actually transport directly to the correct advanced stroke center immediately from the scene without having to go secondary transport from what we call a primary stroke center to a comprehensive stroke center. Now, logistically, we are quartered out of Springfield Township's main headquarters over there on Winton Road. We respond to roughly a 15-minute response time around that location. We're dispatched through Hamilton County Communications Center when the 911 dispatcher suspects a stroke is happening. Now, our local EMS partner agencies are in control of the scene until they decide to transfer care to us over here at the MSU. Or, to be honest, if it's closer to go to the hospital and we can't get there in a timely time, they'll go directly. We transport to the closest appropriate hospital, first determining what level of stroke center is really best for that patient, and then patient preference and transport time beyond that. To be clear, not all patients are transported to a UC Health facility. We really see the mobile stroke unit as a community resource. Now I'll defer to Julie Shaw, again, the Director of Air Care Mobile Care, through which the mobile stroke unit is housed, to speak especially about billing logistics. But briefly, the vast majority of what we do in the back of the mobile stroke unit is billed at what's called an ALS2 charge, which is the typical fee charged by paramedic level of transport for the vast majority of suspected stroke patients. Now, in addition to that, there is a charge for CAT scan, the radiologist read, the consultation with stroke team, and TPA under certain circumstances. But these are all charges that would be performed at the emergency department for someone suffering from acute stroke anyway. They're truly basic for anyone presenting that way. Now, lastly, I will leave you with a story of the first patient we actually treated in the mobile stroke unit. This gentleman suddenly lost movement on one side of his body. Paramedics were called. The mobile stroke unit arrived shortly thereafter. The stroke team physician there on the iPad assessed the patient in real time, reviewed the CAT scan that we got in the back of the mobile stroke, and TPA was given right there in the parking lot before we even left the scene. And importantly, it was within an hour actually of when symptoms started. He was actually transported directly to one of these advanced stroke centers, a comprehensive stroke center, where he underwent that surgical procedure, completely opening the blood vessel and completely resolving his symptoms, all within an hour and a half of when the symptoms started. Now, that doesn't happen to everyone, but what it does, we really believe it certainly highlights the importance of this important community resource. So again, I thank you for your time, and I'll defer to the board for further questions.
Well, thank you. It sounds like a marvelous resource to have for the folks in Colerain Township. And I'm sure you've got quite a few success stories of people that you've been able to help with this.
It is really fantastic to see the potential impact.
Is there any other comments? Well, thank you for your time this evening. It's very much appreciated, and thank you for the service.
Raj, I think I saw you maybe trying to have a comment there.
Yeah. I like the comment you made earlier that Colerain is one of the best in this cardio units and advanced in the heart, the first responders giving a treatment, which is very true. Secondly, I want to ask that gentleman, what this will be dispatched from the university hospital? Primarily, how many units are there?
You broke up there a little bit at the end, but our headquarters are actually out at Springfield Township. That gives us a catchment to the part of Hamilton County that we actually learned before implementing the program. Call Hamilton County Communications for stroke. It's a nice central location, and so it gives us a nice response time. Once we're there on the scene, we will transport to the closest appropriate hospital at that point. So it won't necessarily be down to UC Medical Center, it won't necessarily be to Westchester Hospital. It is the closest appropriate hospital, and that is really a 3-tier process, something called a primary stroke center that can treat patients with TPA, thrombectomy, that surgical procedure, and comprehensive stroke center to treat bleeding types of stroke, and everything down from that.
Right. So I asked this question, if I could, we got some hearing things going on here. If your unit is in east part of town, say Anderson Township, so we need in Colerain, the response time will be longer than immediately from the Springfield Township. So how do you handle that?
It's a very good question. We do contain ourselves within that 15 minutes. So if we're way on the east part of the county, that's not part of our jurisdiction, but it certainly can happen where we are either out on another call or coming back from another call. In those circumstances, we'll get dispatched out to the scene. But if your paramedics are on the scene and recognize that it is going to be a delay until we get there, they know that the hospital transport time, and if it's quicker for them to go directly to the hospital, they'll do that. Now, fortunately, Hamilton County assigns a common, what's called a fire ground. So it's a common radio communication. And so the on-scene crew, if they've done their assessment and they're ready, they will check in with us if we're not already on scene and get an estimate from us. Now, that said, within that response boundary, it is unusual for us to get called off because of the additional transport time within that 15 minutes. However, if Colerain paramedics show up and they clearly are recognizing that this is not a stroke, they can call us off at that point as well.
Good, thank you.
I'd just like to add my thanks to the doctor as well for the presentation. Thank you so much for all you guys are doing the past several months too. Not just your department, but obviously the UC Collaborative Health, and you guys are doing great work. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Then we'll move on to our next presentation, the Community Health Coordinator.
All right. Good evening again. Yes, the next presentation we have for you tonight, Board, involves an update on the Township's Community Health Coordinator position. Board, as you may recall, back in July of this year, we executed a contract with Hamilton County Public Health that would allow for us to host a full-time community health coordinator here in Colerain Township. The role of this community health coordinator was one that was going to provide referral-based care to the residents of Colerain Township who had fallen through any number of the social gaps that exist within our current healthcare system. These types of referral services include addiction recovery resources, mental health services, fall prevention and education, and a host of other services that address other social determinants of health. The purpose of this presentation tonight, then, is to provide a brief update on where this project stands. Over the course of the last several months, the hiring process has been ongoing, but not completely unhindered by our current health crisis. We had nearly 100 applicants for the position, and I'm pleased to announce that we have made an offer that was accepted to an individual who I feel is an excellent fit for the position and for the township. Rachel Fenton. She is a 2016 University of Cincinnati graduate holding a bachelor's degree in psychology. She's a Cincinnati scholarship recipient each year in school from 2011 to 2016, as well as a Dean's List Award winner each year from 2011 to 2016. She holds certifications in substance abuse, counseling and prevention, violence prevention in families and schools, and has extensive experience in the development and maintenance of several key social programs. So her work experience includes employers such as Greater Cincinnati Behavioral Health Services, where she specialized in community psychiatric support treatment, as well as has experience developing problem-solving interventions to assist clients in living a more functional lifestyle. She also spent the last few years with Lighthouse Youth Services, providing holistic care for youth and helping them identify with community support services and resources to help them build necessary life skills. Lastly, she's been employed with Women Helping Women, where she responds to domestic violence calls from police and provides on-scene planning and referral services. Rachel is very excited about starting her new role here. Is even more excited about this role's groundbreaking potential in the world of social services and local government. Rachel's first day is going to be January 4th, 2021. Now, she'll spend the first month of her new employment in training, exchanging her time between Hamilton County Public Health and Colerain Township. She will have many meet and greet sessions with the crews as she gets to know our personnel and our operations, all while developing a strategy to initiate this new role. So even though she's not here with us this evening, I would like to extend a warm congratulations and welcome to Rachel and to wish her all the best as she takes this next step in her new career. Likewise, on behalf of the Colerain Police and Fire Departments, I just want to extend our appreciation of the board's support in approving this opportunity to bring this valuable and much needed resource to Colerain Township. So I will close there. And do you have any questions of me?
It's a great job. It's a good opportunity for our community to have this kind of resource available. So one thing you mentioned, then she'll be working with both police and fire department, right?
Yes, sir. So, yeah.
So it looks like pretty much she'll be on call, like almost like a 24 hours type of service, just like you guys do, fire department, police department. So she will have a time set up in the regular duty hours, and also she'll be on call off duty hours.
So she understands the flexibility that's required of the position. She'll have standing office hours at 4200 Springdale Road there at the administration building, 4 days a week. And then 1 day a week, she'll be at Hamilton County Public Health doing things that are necessary and tied into that portion of her job there. However, she is going to be available 5 days a week. She does understand that at times there's going to be requirements for her to be in the evenings or even on weekends, to where she'll be flexing some of that time because the position is so dynamic and it's really hard to predict what the needs of the position are going to be. I think it's also a good time to note that Chief Denny and I spoke about the partnership with Project Lead, and so we see a real potential for the blending and the working together of these two roles.
Thank you.
Chief, thank you very much. I have a quick question. When this first came up, and this is, I think I requested this kind of overview of what's going on with the position. One of the things that I was concerned about were the infant mortality rates within the township. I had an opportunity to kind of check those by the finest thing we have, I guess, is zip code. We can't really dig much deeper on that data, but some of the zip codes within Colerain Township have some pretty staggering rates of infant mortality. Is there a way that in the future we can kind of, I know that one group I was with for a while was Cradle Cincinnati. Is there a way that we can maybe kind of even expand this even further and deal with infant mortality, or is there a way for that to be part of kind of the specialties of the health coordinator that we have now?
Yeah, excellent question. You had excellent observation as well. So one of our goals for Rachel and I is to sit down and look at Colerain's health data, and that's information supplied directly from public health. So what we have available to us is the multiple disease processes and the mortalities that Colerain Township specifically faces. So we'll take each one of those, break them down, and say, for example, hey, what's our best approach here? Is this an educational, or is this an intervention, or is this a crisis that we need to address? And so this is going to be a holistic approach from a township perspective.
Okay, good. And I encourage you to look at those infant mortality rates first. You'll find, I'm sure you already know what they are. You're out in the field every day. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Matt, a follow up with your questions and answering, Chief. Also, there is a doctor who lives in Colerain Township. She's a chairperson in the Children's Hospital on the infants thing. At one time, sometimes she's actually volunteered to help Colerain Township deal with this type of problems and everything. It'll be great. Our health coordinator will be connected with, her name is Kathy Stivey, and she's a doctor in Children's Hospital, and she's really interested in helping our community. And she'll be good resource to connect with what Matt just answered. make a much difference. Okay.
Great. Yes,
Her
thank you
name
so
is
much.
Kathy. Kathy. I'll talk to her about this. Maybe introduce both of them.
Thanks, Raj.
Thank you, Will. My recollection when we first talked about this was it seems like there was outside funding for this, or was this part of our subscription to the Board of Health?
So this whole opportunity is paid for actually through the National Institute of Health, which is passed down to the CDC, which is passed on to Hamilton County Public Health. So this program comes at no cost to Colerain Township.
Right, that was my recollection. So thanks for, being out and doing the work to find this benefit for our township residents.
Yes, sir.
So, was there any other comments? All right, well, thank you very much, Will. And we will move along to the next part of the meeting, which is citizens' address. And we have one comment that we've received via email. And that is from a Mr. Robert Riccardi. And his comment, I believe, has to do with our Circle, which is our electronic newsletter. And his comment is specifically the article titled KPI, Electronic Newsletter Statistics, can be far more informative if it included both the number of subscribers and the number of views per month. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Mr. Robert Riccardi. So that was the one citizen's comment that we had for this evening, which will bring us to the next part of our meeting, which is administrative reports. And I'll go to Mr. Jeff Weckbach, our Assistant Administrator.
Yes, thank you.
Hold on, Dan, excuse me. I have one of the citizens wrote me an email a long time ago. His name is Kevin Rem, and I think he previously talked to Dan and also Mike Ayana. He's got a problem with the neighbor, 6830 Cheviot Road. He says a lot of trash been dumping on the driveway, and he wants me to bring it to the in the meeting, address this problem. Anything Dan, about this situation, or Mike? Is Mike?
I do know that I have spoken to him before, and I believe Mike Iona has actually been out there to look at the situation.
Yeah, and he said the problem is getting worse. Something. Is Mike Iona in the Zoom meeting? No.
I'll ask Mike to address that when his report comes up this evening on administrative reports. If Jeff Weckbach could ask him to talk about that. That's over on the road near Blue Rock.
Yeah, it was Cheviot Road. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Raj. Yeah, I've actually stopped there a few months ago and talked to him. So, all right, Mr. Weckbach.
Yes, thank you, board. So I know we've been having a couple of tech difficulties to start the meeting off, so we're going to try to keep our administrative reports brief. On that note, we're not going to necessarily be displaying all the, fire, EMS, police statistics here in this meeting, but they will be available on Circle, and they are currently live and available online. But to kick things off with administrative reports, I did want to address Mr. Riccardi's email. Currently, we have 1,120 subscribers to our Circle feed. And when it comes to views per month, Circle works based off of each individual post. So we could, in theory, figure out how many people look at each post, but it doesn't necessarily accumulate that data to say, each month, X number of people looked at this. And then it certainly doesn't account for, if we were posting per month, since it has to be on a per post basis, if somebody were to say, look at a post 2 months later, that view may get lost in translation. And so I think that's part of the reason why we don't share that number specifically. But to answer the first part of his question, 1,120. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Chief Alan Walls in the fire department.
Mr. Weckbach?
Yes, sir.
I just had one quick question that I'd spoken to you about earlier today. I had a couple citizen inquiries about the construction going on at the bottom of the connector on on Springdale Connector at the property at the end. That in fact, for those that have been asking is, and I think I have this right, is a location for a new UDF. Is that the case?
That is my understanding. Mike Iona, if you can weigh in on this as well. This is the Zillig property at the Colerain Connector.
Certainly, I'd be happy to, Mr. Weckbach. Currently, the property owner is going through the process of subdividing that property. They're working, as you all know, subdivision process is governed by Hamilton County, and it runs through the Hamilton County Department of Engineers. To date, we have no official information regarding any proposed uses at that site. We also do not have any official applications for a zoning permit. Staff has heard, quote unquote, through the grapevine that it could potentially be a United Dairy Farmers, but there is nothing officially submitted to staff at this time to determine the types of uses that will occupy that site.
And that property is a commercial. I guess I'm new to kind of zoning. It's a commercial. It's zoned commercial, but it's still a commercial subdivision, I guess. Is that right? Is that the appropriate term?
Correct, Trustee Waller. The site is currently zoned B2, and that's a general business district, which permits a variety of commercial retail service uses.
Okay, so they could be just breaking that up into smaller items right now, smaller pieces.
Correct. The
Okay.
current proposal submitted indicates the subdivision into, I think, 3 or 4 parcels. Currently.
Okay.
And again,
Thank
that is, to reiterate, that has not been officially through the final plat process through Hamilton County. So those lots are still in that preliminary stage of being planned, and they have not been officially subdivided through a final.
Not only are they not knocking on our door yet, they're not even in the parking lot.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for the information and the update.
No problem. Happy to help.
And Mike, while we've got you here, not to jump in front of Alan, but if you do have an update on 6830 Cheviot Road.
Can I get a little more information as to the background on what site that is?
Yeah, maybe after the meeting, Raj, we can have you connect with Mike and provide more detail, and then we can get an answer to the individual that reached out to you.
That's a great idea, Mr.
Yeah, I can talk to, I'll talk to Mike tomorrow or so. Hey, Mike, I just want to thank you so much for the helping the business on the Springdale Road. They are very happy, and you did a fantastic job. And this time of the COVID, the business going down, and because of her help, they tried to pull back the business together. I really, really appreciate for this great help.
Happy to help, Raj. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Board. And with that, I will now turn it over to Chief Alan Walls. Thank you for being patient.
Thank you, and good evening to the board and everyone watching virtually. For the month of November, we responded to 730 emergency medical services incidents, 181 fire incidents. We had 38 responses into the Springfield Township contract area, and our reported fire loss was $15,050. One incident of note, November the 19th in the 6,000 block of Thompson Road. It was a large brush fire, approximately 4,000 feet from the closest surface roadway. And it took us about 2 hours to get it under control, and it required assistance from Green Township, Miami Township, Ross Township, and Whitewater Township, and in particular, water tankers, because it's a non-hydrated area. Our average response time for first unit on the scene was 5 minutes and 25 seconds. And our first unit on the scene, less than 6 minutes, was 69% for the month of November. And then quickly, just to address community health coordinator position and the mobile stroke unit. If everyone recalls back early in October, I provided a presentation and there were 8 vision statements, and looking at us changing with the ever evolving landscape, building a network of partners to provide services to the residents, and in some cases is advancing the use of technology. You know, what we've heard tonight, once again, just raises the bar on what we can do in terms of making a difference for those in the township. And in addition, bringing, unprecedented care to the driveway for our residents with those partners. And so, kudos to Chief Mueller for all of his hard work and our partnerships here with Public Health and UC Health. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Chief, thank you so much. I have a couple questions. I don't know if they're appropriate for you or Mr. Weckbach. We're talking about vaccines. I guess we've got a plan in place for first responders within the township.
So we do have a plan in place. We've been in contact here within recent days, and it looks like we should have the vaccine in hand within 4 weeks, probably, for our frontline workers.
And how is it? This is kind of a hairy subject, but I need to bring it up or wouldn't be doing my job. Is it going to be, and I don't even know where I feel about this. Is it required? Is it optional? Are most of first responders interested in getting it anyway? Where do we sit on that? If you can even say, I know that there are probably going to be all kinds of legal issues with that too.
Yeah, Matt, on that note, when it comes to required or not, we haven't necessarily gone down that path because, as you said, there are potentially legal issues on each side. So one of the things that we've started the process of doing is just ensuring from an educational standpoint that our employees have access to documents and resources that would help them to better understand, A, how vaccines in general work, B, how this vaccine specifically works, and then to have sort of a sounding board to answer questions. So I know Chief Walls can speak more to it, but I know we've made our medical director for the EMS side of the operations available to staff. And I believe he has started with calls with members of the various unit days to try to get that education piece out there as best as possible.
That's fantastic. I like that you're providing the data and let people select from them. And I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, that is correct. Dr. Lacosto provided his first in-service this week. Then he has another one next week and the week after that. And likewise, he's available for the police department as well in terms of that educational effort.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, I'll move on to Chief Mark Denny from the police department for the next administrative report.
Just quickly, I just want to take a second to thank the board and the township administration for the overwhelming support at our officer-involved shooting last week. This was a tremendously stressful event for a police officer. Not only were they just involved in an incident that put their lives in real danger, but they had to exercise the most powerful responsibility that we entrust to them, that's using deadly force. When these incidents happen, they worry about their legal future and their employment future. So you probably don't realize how important it is when they hear from their leaders that they're supported. Our officer actually remarked that he felt just an immediate sense of support, not only from the police leadership, but from the township administration and from the board members who even called him at home to check on him in those following days after the shooting. So thankfully, our officer was unharmed and our suspect did survive. So we're tremendously grateful for both of those. And I just want to thank you for standing up for our officers when they needed it. That's all I have.
Mark, I would like to point out that that our officer probably saved the lives of a few of our other police officers by his ability to work under extreme duress and exhibit the great training that he's had by neutralizing the suspect and keeping anybody that's a busy area where that happened, and keeping anybody else from getting hurt. And that just goes to show the level of training our guys have. So
I think when the facts have come out, it's going to be pretty impressive for everybody. And I'll have him in front of you at some point. The actions were that heroic, in my opinion. So I'm really proud of how he responded, but we're more concerned that he's taken care of right now, and we'll get to that when the time's right.
Yeah, I spoke to him last week. Did he come back to work already?
He started yesterday. He's back to work. Great. And he's doing well.
Well, to our officer, you certainly have the appreciation and admiration of the community and of the township trustees.
Thank you for that.
Hey, Chief, that's a bravery act. It's a very bravery act and a very remarkable, quick response to save the other officers himself. I think I applaud him for his bravery things to protect the fellow officers himself.
It brings home how
Appreciate that.
important it is to hire the right people and to make sure you train them right. So it's important thing that we do that when we start looking for them, we find the right people so that it plays out through the whole process.
You know, one of the things that the community probably should realize, if that suspect is still in the hospital or wherever he is, we provide 24-hour security for him, and that's a huge cost to our department to have an officer parked there to keep him from escaping. I don't know if he's still in the hospital or where he's at now, but that's a huge cost for our department to pull an officer off and have him guard that person as a prisoner until
It
we can
was
turn him over.
tremendously strainful to us because we're responding to COVID as well. So we've got some officers that are out. So yeah, to pull somebody 24 hours a day is not an easy task, but he was released from the hospital late last week. So he's in jail now.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, sir.
And board, that is the last of our administrative reports for tonight. If any of you have any additional questions, I'd be happy to field them now.
Mr. Weckbach, we had talked earlier about Pebble Valley, a couple of the roads on Pebble Valley.
Yeah, so to give some context here, I think that an email was circulated to the three of you trustees, highlighting some of the road conditions on Pebble Valley. I've since forwarded that, as well as I believe Dan Unger, I think you forwarded it to Jackie O'Connell as well. We're gonna have the team dig in. We haven't finalized any of our road paving schedules. However, the one thing that I can offer is we have a lot of streets that are in similar, if not worse condition. And so, you know, we've got an uphill battle over the next several years when it comes to our road maintenance. We take everything into consideration, but one of the most important things that we look at is how do we get the best bang for our buck? So, you know, next year or the year after, I believe we're going to be trying to, you know, further stretch our dollars by using a 50% match to the OPWC process on several of our streets. And we're going to continue to look for ways to get the most money into our roads. Jackie, I don't know if you have any more context that you can provide at this time. Otherwise, we can dig in and try to find more.
Yeah, I looked at the streets mentioned and the streets in that area, and I'm guessing they must have had an HOA meeting because I also had a call from a resident today about a couple other issues back there with signage and such that we're looking into. Yeah, and just real quickly, I looked up, we have, I believe 496 streets that we rate. And some of those that were mentioned in the email were as high as 31s out of, like they were the 31st best street in the area. So we'll take a look at them. We redid our PCI process this year to make it, to update it. It had been years since we updated it. And unfortunately, we have more roads that need attention, as you guys know, than we have money to do so. So we're going to look at some creative funding sources like Mr. Weckbach said, and all of this stuff is out there on the internet too. If people want to take a look to see where the roads fall, and that doesn't make people necessarily happier, but you know, our first issue is dealing with roads that are causing constant problems in terms of stormwater issues and safety issues when we start looking at all the ones that are on the bottom of the list when we go up. So we're planning that out for the next 5 years to see where things fall, hoping to stretch our dollars a little further, but unfortunately we just have more problems with our roads than we have money to deal with. So, but I will follow, yeah, the homeowners. Yeah.
Jackie, I had a question. Then we voted for the license plate fees, $5. That money, when it will be kick in? 2021, next year?
Yeah, that's probably a Mr. Weckbach or Mr. Baker question when we'll get all of it, but we'll start realizing some of it this year already in 2021.
Yeah, so I think we get a half year in 21 and then the full year starting in 22. You know, that equates to, I think we've got about 60,000 roughly registered vehicles. So it's about $300,000. Now, we've talked about different ways to structure our road dollars. We haven't necessarily, you know, had a conversation with the board yet on that, but we're trying to figure out the best combination of road intervention tactics. So those run the gambit from a full depth replacement for an entire segment of road, which is just taking it all the way down to the subsurface and replacing the subsurface, all the way to as light as just cold patch and hot patch filling a pothole. So there's a kind of a continuum of different interventions that we can take. And we're trying to still figure out what is the best way to extend the life of our roads and to maximize our dollars in the long run.
Yeah, in that subdivision near back there this past year, we did cape sealing, which I know some of the residents weren't happy with, but it'll allow us, it was a quick and easy thing to get back there, to patch the road, to save what we could of it. It was in that CD range when you're talking grading scale. So there was, still some hope for it. So we were able to, we cape sealed it to give it a little bit longer. And it doesn't look like your, like Mr. Wickbach said, it does not look like your road that's been milled and then re-asphalted. And it's not supposed to. I mean, if we wanted to do pretty roads, I mean, we could put a quick layer of blacktop on all the roads and they'd be pretty for about a year, and then it wouldn't do any good. So yeah, we just need we're working on using the numbers and the data to find the best solution, and the science to find the best solution to our road dollars. So and knowing that it costs about $1 million for a mile of roadway. It's not a cheap fix.
Let's go ahead.
Jackie,
Swerve right into
wait a minute. I had a question. So we're talking about the township roads. Also, there's tons of county roads. Also, are we collaborating with the county engineer also, how they can fix the roads?
Yeah, the county is, we have the separation of roads. The county is, when we, last meeting, you guys approved a resolution to go ahead and work with the county on the SKIP project. So that's a collaboration that we have. And then we can point out where there's issues, but they have limited resources too. So I am not sure what's on their plate for next year.
Good. Thank you.
All right. And was that the end of the administrative reports, Mr. Weckbach?
That is correct.
Okay, we will go ahead and go right into the trustees report. Matt or Raj, would either one of you like to go first?
Go ahead, Matt. You want to go?
Sure. Thank you. Excuse me, I'll try to be brief. Just a big thank you to the entire administration, everybody involved with the second Farmers to Families. I know that we served more people than we did last time, and I know that was over 1,000. Excuse me, over 1,000 individuals, and it's just kind of heartwarming to know that we can do that this time of year. And I'd like to thank everybody involved with the banners. I know we had talked about a ceremony and had provided a ceremony. This is the first time I've actually been on any kind of link in the last 9 days, because I've been lucky enough to catch COVID again, the second time. I might need to play the lottery or something, and it's been a little bit more difficult this time. So let me urge everybody out there, I think Mr. Unger said it, take care of each other, especially during the holiday season. And it's odd to say this because it feels like it's just coming around the corner, I guess, is so last meeting till Christmas. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. Happy holiday seasons. And I'm just so thankful for year one with the folks that have been in touch with me, and the folks have told me that, hey, you're doing it right, you're doing it wrong. I don't like you, I like you, whatever. It's honored to be kind of be involved with piling policy for the future. Also like to thank all those within the administration, public service, fire, EMS, and police that are giving up those holiday hours, going out and keeping us safe and working through the issues that we have. Still, I'm not going to be mean about it, but we still have trash issues, and we're still working on it. And I just received a message from somebody today that that a group of people near the recycling building, Mrs. Horst and her husband and a few others cleaned up a bunch of trash from Compton to Coogan in that neck of the woods. It's really simple. It's our home, and we need it to reflect, I think, the values of the community, and the values of the community are not trashing it. And we've seen that over and over and over again, what the community values are. We're seeing it with fire, with things like fire and EMS, with the stroke unit, and with community advocates, and through the police, through the LEAD program. We have a significant number of problems in society. Let's not cause more. I mean, this throwing trash out is a self-inflicted wound, folks. We can clean that up, and you know, it's the start of momentum towards better things. And I see better things coming around in the township because you see everybody on the same page. So I think that's it. And just thanks to everybody for reaching out the last 9 days when I've been sick. And hopefully we'll get through it this time. And Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year to everybody there on the dais and all my colleagues at the township. I certainly appreciate everything you guys do. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Did you want to go ahead, Raj?
Yeah, go ahead. Matt, it's good to see you. You're feeling better. Actually, I was worried about you, and now I see you on the television. You look great, and you're a strong guy. Pull through this second time. Hopefully, you'll get your strength back. We'll meet you in the meetings in person. And I wanted, Matt, you also mentioned about the big concern about the trash. And a couple of weeks ago, myself, Jackie, and Jeff Mills, and Jeff Weckbach, and ODOT Transportation, Justin Kemp, and Jim, we all have a Zoom meeting. We go to create a collaborative measures, a program to come up with the cleaning up the Colerain Avenue. And ODOT were very supportive on this deal. And we're going to sit again and how we're going to implement this program. And Jackie is really very powerful at the meeting. She came up with a lot of ideas, and we're going to move forward on that. Hopefully, in 2021, Colerain Avenue will be starting looking good. And secondly, talk about Colerain Avenue. And a previous meeting I mentioned about working with the Metro bus, and I think they're building 3 shelters and 5 benches along the Colerain Avenue, right, Jeff? 3 shelters.
3. So close. 3 shelters. They're going to be looking at doing 3 shelters and 3 benches along the bus routes.
Yeah, and also they want to install the trash cans too. And once they're all done, then we come up with a plan, who is going to empty all the trash cans and maintain all the trashes. That's one, Matt, you're really eager about to know about this kind of thing, how we're going to do this. So they were supportive, Metro, ODOT, and ourselves, our Public Works, we working together to make a Colerain Avenue nicer. And so these are the things that I'm looking forward to see in 2021. I'm looking over 2021. I want to plead our township. You see the testimony of Matt, how he suffered that COVID-19, second time. Myself, I lost my cousin in India. He grew up, we grew up together since the childhood, and he was a Reserve Bank executive. He passed away. Here, another cousin's wife, about 2 weeks ago in Chicago, she passed away with COVID-19. Guys, I'm pleading to our residents in Colerain Township. COVID is real. COVID-19 is real. We have in the country for surpassing 35 million cases. We got to be careful, especially Colerain Township. We got to look out each other. If because of negligence, then we're getting more cases. Our first responders, health people, nurses, doctors, they're putting their life in jeopardy. So they're getting tired. They're getting weaker. The scarcity hospitals are filled double than ever. So COVID-19 is real. That we need everyone to get behind public health measures. What the public health CDC, our local public health department says, let us follow. let us be very careful. Look out for each other. Also, reach out some senior citizens that you know. The holiday is coming, Christmas is coming. Make sure they're not lonely, how you can talk to them, help them if they need. Okay, you can drop off food at the porch, anything. This is a time, Colerain Township, we all come together, unite together to protect our life that we really cherish. So that's my plea, and let us work together. Help our first responders. They have been working so hard. Our police department and the fire department, also all our public works people, they're working hard. Like Dane said, they're working the holiday days to keep us safe. Okay, let's when they're doing the holiday time, let us keep praying for those people. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Just a couple of comments. We just spoke about the license plate fees and when those might come into when those funds start flowing our way. I want to say I just read where license plates and driver's license renewals and some other fees had been extended from April through December 1st, which was last week, to give people time to get them paid and to, throughout the COVID situation. And I believe I recently saw a note from the Ohio Department of Motor Vehicles that now they've pushed that off to July 1st of 21. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect, because people now know that they can go ahead and run on their plates that expired over the last few months. They can go ahead and run them into next year. And I would have to think that's going to affect our license plate fees. I've done mine by mail, so mine are always up to date, but we'll just have to see how that plays out. If there's one thing I'll be excited to do, it is get back to our regular meetings. We've all learned a lot about technology, and I certainly prefer having the trustees here and citizens in the room. I realize that's something that doesn't work right now, but hopefully we'll get back to those soon. And then a comment for our police chief and our fire chief. I'm out and about quite a bit, and I've been over in Northern Kentucky recently, and the changes in traffic patterns on I-275 due to the closure of the Brent Spence Bridge has put a tremendous amount of more traffic on 275. The detour coming up from Kentucky is marked to go around the east side of town, but there are a fair number of people who've taken it west out past the airport and up through Lawrenceburg, and then around 275 through Colerain and Mount Healthy, and we have had a dramatic increase in traffic going through our community. And I don't know how that's reflected for our police and fire departments, but I've seen more broken down vehicles on the side of 275, and it's just one of the things that happens when you double the traffic. So whatever happens with that bridge over the Ohio River down there, I hope it's repaired soon, so the traffic flow can get back to its original design. And those were my comments. One other comment, getting back to the litter pickup, we do have positions posted. The board, the three of us came together and decided to hire two, I believe, 20-hour people, and we have had a couple applicants, but I think those positions are posted if somebody'd like to go to work for the township. And I think the person who we're going to hire is somebody who's passionate about cleaning up the community, and I know there's been a lot of volunteers that have gotten out to do it, and here this board intends to set you up for success, and if anybody out there is interested in applying for those positions, they are available. And the last thing is there's been a lot of negatives this year. There's also been a lot of positives. The township has stayed together. We've gotten a lot of things done, and to our staff and to our citizens and to our friends and neighbors, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. So, and with that, we will move into new business, and Mr. Assistant Administrator Jeff Weckbach.
Thank you, board. First up tonight are 3 items in the Public Safety Division with Police Chief Mark Denny.
Well, board, I have 3 items for you tonight. The first is a recommendation for the adoption of a motion to authorize Township Administrator Jeff Mills to renew the personal services agreement with James Love. Pastor Love has served with the police department now for 6 years as our PIO. This renewal is a 2-year agreement, and the rate of compensation remains $1,017 per month for the first year. That's the same rate that he's had since 2018, by the way. And then it's increased to $1,100 per month for the second year. His role has changed dramatically over the past couple of years. He not only serves as the PIO, he's really become the face of the township in a lot of different arenas. He represents us at funerals, holiday events, and he also is very active and engaged with our community policing. So I think this is definitely a great relationship, and I just would like to see that move forward if you are willing to move forward.
I will motion to authorize the township administrator renew the personal services agreement with Reverend James Love.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just like to point out that I mean, what Reverend Love does for the community is incredible, and I think that we're happy to we were lucky to have him, and he makes a big difference in a lot of people's lives, and I'm proud to make the motion to have him back.
Thank you.
And part of our emergency management training is in times of crisis, the township speaks with one voice. And as Chief Denny pointed out, James Love is our public information officer. So for official news on anything, he is the one voice for the township. Was there any other comments? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, if you'd please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajgopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
The second item is a recommendation to adopt a motion authorizing Administrator Jeff Mills to execute a memorandum of understanding with Hamilton County to implement the LEAD program. This is the program that you saw a presentation on earlier this evening, and this is a great opportunity, as I stated before, for our police department to do more than just lock people up over and over again. She mentioned frequent flyers. That's a term that we use quite a bit in this line of work, and it is, and it's quite often addiction related, homelessness related. And while that doesn't excuse behavior, we need to have a better way of using our services. And it saves us time, it saves us money, and it's just the right thing to do, in my opinion. So your approval would allow us to move forward with that, and it's of no cost to the township. In fact, it's probably a significant savings for us.
I would motion that we authorize the township administrator to execute a memorandum of understanding with Hamilton County to implement the LEAD program.
I'll second
I
that.
second
Waller.
it, Dan.
It's a motion by Unger, seconded by Trustee Waller. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Chief, I think we talked about this. It's a great program, Chief, and we're using a resource to help our community. You know, I work with the probation department. Some people need to be helped. They need help, and especially people doing a misdemeanor, first offenders, non-violent, and lead them to the resource available in our community, give them a first chance. We know that our jail justice center is pretty packed and use them for the violent criminals. And they help this first offenders, non-violent people will really, kind of diversion program is good for our community and also good for our township. And we can use our resources available that officer can make a reference to these places. And also it relieves the officers spending more time in the court, more time taking to the transport to them back and forth to the jail and all this trial process. Also less expensive.
Yes.
So it's a good program, Chief. I really appreciate bringing the program for our township.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Is there any other comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to kind of echo what Raj said. Chief, thanks for, I don't know if you recall in 2015 when I first met you and Dan Malloy, and I said, look, I'm not convinced on this whole heroin task force. And you guys convinced me and really made me look at law enforcement from a different point of view. I think this kind of, where I think I'm more attuned now to the idea of mental health issues that we have in our community. And certainly that's linked to homelessness and often linked to drug addiction, and drug addiction linked to homelessness. And Raj pointed out, we're not there, you know, that the county jails are full. They're not getting the treatment. This is an opportunity to put people in a position where they can win and they can improve their lives. And I'm just so thankful I had that discussion with you and Mr. Malloy about 5 years ago, because you've turned me into kind of a more well-rounded kind of individual when it comes to law enforcement. It's more than just locking people up. And I think I understand that a little bit more now. And I think this is an outstanding opportunity.
Thank you.
And with no other comments, Mr. Baker, if you'd please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
And my final item tonight is the recommendation of adoption of a motion to authorize agreement with Focus Safety Strategies, LLC, for a police staffing study. Adoption of this motion would authorize Focus Safety Strategies to conduct a staffing and workload study of the police department. The cost of the 6-month study is $16,775, and we have drug seizure funds to pay for the study. This would not come out of our tax budget and our residents' money. The police department's never had a department-wide needs study conducted, and this is an opportunity to have experts in the public safety field report back to us on what we really need. I think everyone expects the police chief to stand up and tell you, I need more. But I think we owe it to our residents, and I owe it to you to have an educated evaluation to be able to give you real facts and real data to back up what I say. To make assumptions and just hire people or let people go based on what we think is true is not a proper way to run a police department. So I think this is a smart move to make for us. Yes, it does cost some money, but I think in the long run, it allows us to make smart decisions. And when we do make those higher decisions, to make those where they benefit the community and the police department.
Chief, I think this is an outstanding idea. I just have a question to kind of add. Do they do, my sense is from kind of benchmarking your department and how you've budgeted and spent money, that you're on the cheap side of things, that you take care of us financially. Is there a way to add that aspect to this report so that, we like a financial kind of analysis, so we can see that in fact, hey, we can show citizens this is what we're doing compared to other communities financially when it comes to this size of force? Or is there a way to broaden that, or would that already be included in that?
I believe they do that, but I will certainly, when we sit down, assuming this is approved, we'll sit down with them and tell them that's a desire of the board, that we would like to have a section where they look at our neighbors and tell us how we're doing in conjunction with them. So yeah, I think that's important for us to be able to report out to our citizens as well.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and motion to authorize agreement with Focus Safety Strategies, LLC, for a police staffing study. Is there a second?
I'll second that, to bring that to the floor.
Okay.
Okay, discussions now.
Yes.
Chief, I have a question, Chief. And we hired a consultant the last time, last year, and they work on studies, and you pretty much came to the meeting, did a lot of presentation, beat by beat and everything. So what is actually the outcome of that study, which is, he did part of this year also, right? Part of this year, last year, this year.
He was, we hired him. I'm sorry.
Okay, so what type of outcome it came? My second question is, how this study is going to be different than the study the gentleman has done. How this is going to bring more efficient our police department, our enforcing service to our community.
Brandon Kyle was the crime analyst that we contracted with for a year. And the goal there was to have him analyze the crime data that we had and to tell us if there was more efficient ways for us to respond and to start identifying trends when they started. And I'll be frank with you, we just don't have the crime level to make that a $1,000 a month expense. I didn't see that. I was all for it. And it's certainly the trend in a lot of larger departments, but we really don't have the crime volume. When you're having 5 and 6 violent crimes in a month, it's not real difficult to come up with a trend. And I don't know that I need to pay somebody $1,000 to do that for us. Our property crime is fairly predictable. It's retail crime generally. So while I thought it was a good idea, I wanted to test it out. We chose not to renew that contract at the $12,000 a year for something I think we can do ourselves. This, conversely, is a staffing study. What it's going to do is look at what resources the township has in policing, look at our crime rate, look at our call volume, look at our area that we cover, and tell us whether we have enough officers, what we need if we choose to expand, or if we need to have less officers. In fact, this company did a study of one local community and actually told them they had too many police officers, which doesn't happen very often. But I think it gives them a little credibility when they come to the table and say they're going to look at it. So Mr. Kyle was looking at just the activity on the street. This is looking at what resources we have to bring to bear for our township to keep us safe, and whether we're understaffed, overstaffed, and what our future looks like. So in the future, when I come to you and say, hey, I think we need officers, I want to come to you with some facts and something other than just my opinion based on what I think I know. These are people that are experts in the field, and they'll look at what we have and tell us whether we're doing the things we should be doing. And they will actually look at our civilian staffing, our investigative staffing, and our patrol staffing. We had a free assessment done about 4 or 5 years ago now that just did our patrol, and they made recommendations for a modest expansion. We did not take that up or do that. But again, we just need to look again as a whole. Do I have enough people in investigations, or do I have too many in investigations that I could move some back onto patrol? So I think it's just a 30,000 foot view of our operations and gives us some real tangible details to work off of.
Thank you, Chief. And how long the study will be done? It will take place.
It'll take 6 months. They should be done in, I believe it's June 1st is when they've quoted on their proposal.
So we'll use that study result, the recommendation, as a tool to analyze our operations, the law enforcement operation, correct?
Right. And I'll sit down with you and show that to you, and you can kind of give me some direction on how you want us to move forward with an understanding of what we have, what our abilities are. So I think it just puts us all on the right platform to get started with those conversations.
Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
All right, was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Wallet.
Aye.
Thank you very much, Board.
Thank you, Chief Denny. Our last item from Public Safety comes to you from the Fire Department with Chief Alan Walls.
Good evening to the board once again, and I've got one item tonight for your consideration. A request to purchase and install a 24-foot by 24-foot post and frame building at the training tower. This building will replace 3 storage pods that have been there for approximately 20 years. They are corroded. They likewise are dilapidated and in disrepair. They've been repaired a number of times. And so in respect to rodents and vermin and snakes and insects and such, we've had some damage to the gear that's there. The cost of the building in total is $23,540, and that does include the removal of the 3 pods that are there in a state of disrepair.
I motion that we would authorize the capital expenditure for the training tower storage building.
I'll second that.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? I've looked at this and I understand what it is that you want, Chief, and I agree with it.
Looks pretty bad, Chief. You need a new thing, new place.
Thank you.
Was there any other discussion?
None.
None.
Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, Board. That concludes the items out of Public Safety this evening. Next up in new business is an item out of Public Services from Director Jackie O'Connell.
Good evening. Tonight I have one item. It is a request for a resolution to dispose of for sale by Take my glasses off so I can read it. For disposal of sale of equipment and vehicles which are obsolete, unfit, or unneeded for public use. Basically, we have a bunch of picnic tables at the parks that we took out this year when we replaced them with recycled picnic tables with recycled fund. So we took our worst picnic tables out so that we could replace them, and we would like to auction them.
I would motion that we, for the resolution for disposal by sale of equipment and vehicles which are obsolete, unfit, or unneeded for public use, parentheses, picnic tables.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Jackie, I spoke to Jeff Mills about this item when I saw it on the agenda, and typically these go to Gov Deals, which is where people can go online and find them. And I asked Jeff if there was because of what they are, and they're here, and there is some transportation issues with moving them for whoever buys them. I was wondering, and you can work this out with Jeff Mills, if there was a way to make those available to Colerain Township residents for maybe a week and see if anybody wants one before we put them on Gov Deals, because picnic tables can be hard to find, especially good industrial ones, industrial strength ones. I realize that some of them are not in the best condition, but if I would ask that you work that out with Jeff Mills. I guess as a board of trustees, we're authorizing you to dispose of them, but when you get a chance to talk to Jeff, he'll explain my idea. That might give township residents a chance to take a look at them first.
I think that's a great idea, Mr. Unger. I think that to give a first shot to residents somehow would be, without us becoming a used surplus sale, would be a great idea.
Yes, we can definitely work something out without becoming a flea market.
Right, and the thing is, if they go on Gov Deals, they'll end up selling for $10 a piece or something, and
Right.
and they're probably worth a lot more than that. And that's something that's somebody locally might want one of those. So, was there any other discussion?
And just for your information, we would set a minimum price on those for Gov Deals, that we wouldn't accept them if they were, the minimum price would be the scrap price,
Yes.
because we don't want to sell them to somebody else to scrap. That doesn't make any sense to us.
Right. Was there any other discussion?
None.
Did you get the second on that, Jeff? Okay, yeah, I motioned for that and you seconded on that, Matt. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, I did.
Yeah, Jeff's just taking minutes over here.
Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, board. Next up from the Planning and Zoning Department is Mr. Mike Iona with 4 items of new business.
Thank you, Mr. Weckbach, and good evening to the board. As Jeff stated, I will be presenting 4 items tonight from the Department of Planning and Zoning. The first relates to establishing a public hearing date for an application to the Zoning Commission. And the last 3 items pertain to end-of-year housekeeping for the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Zoning Commission. Item number 1 is a motion to set a public hearing on January 12th, 2021 at 7 p.m. for a zoning map amendment. That's case number ZA 2020-06. And the application is for the construction of a 66-unit townhome development. The application will be heard at the Zoning Commission hearing scheduled for December 15th, 2020 at 6 p.m. in the trustee chambers at the Colerain Township Administration Building located at 4200 Springdale Road. Public testimony can be provided in person at that Zoning Commission hearing in accordance with the protocol established by Colerain Township and approved by you all, the Board of Trustees. This protocol is consistent and compliant with all applicable local and state health orders. More information on the submitted application, including a site plan, landscape plan, and current staff documents, can be found on the Now Pending section of the Planning and Zoning webpage. Staff is recommending that the board adopt a motion to set the proposed public hearing for Zoning Commission application A 2020-06.
I would motion that we set a public hearing on January 12th, 2021 at 7 p.m. for the zoning map amendment ZA 2020-06, 66-unit townhome development.
I'll second that.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a motion to approve the 2021 meeting and submission dates for the zoning commission. As usual, the Board of Trustees approves the schedule of the zoning commission, and staff is recommending adoption of the motion to approve the 2021 meeting and submission dates for the zoning commission.
I'll motion to approve the 2021 meeting and submission dates for the zoning commission.
I'll second it.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? And these can be found in the agenda packet, which I saw them in there. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 3 is a motion to approve the 2021 meeting and submission dates for the Board of Zoning Appeals. As stated previously, the Board of Trustees approves the schedule for all boards, including the Board of Zoning Appeals, and staff is recommending adoption of the motion to approve the 2021 meeting and submission dates for the Board of Zoning Appeals, and that schedule is contained within the board packet.
I'll motion to approve the 2021 meeting and submission dates for the Board of Zoning Appeals as provided within the meeting packet.
I will second it. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Baker. Go ahead, Raj.
None.
Okay. Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Item number 4 is a motion to approve the Department of Planning and Zoning 2021 fee schedule. Every year, the board approves the upcoming year, the fee schedule for the upcoming year. This year, there are no proposed changes to the planning and zoning fee structure from 2020 to 2021. There was a fee that was added because it wasn't on the previous schedule, and that's for the appeal of the zoning administrator's decision. It's a Board of Zoning Appeals application, and this addition was made to correct an existing omission of the application type and to correct that existing fee schedule. So staff is recommending adoption of the motion to approve the Department of Planning and Zoning 2021 fee schedule.
I motion that we approve the zoning department 2021 fee schedule.
I'll second.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Mike, as you mentioned, there are no increases in any of these fees for next year.
There are no increases. That is correct, Mr. Unger.
That's just the one item that was not on there that we needed to put on.
Correct.
Okay, was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, board. That is it for the items I have from the Department of Planning and Zoning. Before I wrap up and close out 2020, I want to wish you all happy holidays, and thank you for your support this year. It's been a busy year, and you know, it's been a banner year for permits, and we've done some of the larger zoning applications that we've done in recent years, and we've also had, I think, at the end of the year, we'll have done the busiest year of code enforcement complaints on record in Colerain Township. And this was certainly not a small feat. And it was made possible by all the support from you, as well as my staff. And I'd like to thank them tonight at the meeting. And that's Jesse Urbancic, Taylor Grunwald, Chris Cavallero, and Laura Dakin. Thank you all so much coming through a year with COVID on top of an already busy year. Has not been easy, but thanks to all of your support and the support of staff, we've been able to get things done. So thank you again, and happy holidays.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Mike, thank you again for helping the local businesses. You're really keen on helping them. You're right there when they need help. I really appreciate that. Have a nice Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Iona. Up next, we have items in the administration department. There are several items in the packet, and the first is one that I'm really excited about, and I think we all are every year. I tell Jeff Mills whenever we finalize the budget book, it's like Christmas for me, because I get my big budget document at that point. But at the last trustee meeting, we brought forward a full copy of the 2021 strategic plan and budget book. You'll find that contained here in your packet. And I recommend a motion to adopt the 2021 strategic plan and budget book. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
I will motion that we adopt the 2021 strategic plan and budget book.
I second it, Dave.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'll go first. And I'm a big, strong supporter of this strategic plan and budget. It's all goal oriented, and we did in 19, in 20, and in 20, like I mentioned last meeting, we put a priority in the sidewalk. We can see that we are building a lot of sidewalks. Now 21 is clearly stating a lot of goals. Make a Colerain Township this beautification, Colerain corridor plan, and all this going to become real. And building the new businesses, that's also part of the strategic plan. And I think we got a great budget to do that. That is a well-written. Jeff Beckbach and Jeff Mills and all the leaders of each department. They really did a great job to put together this 2021 strategic plan. I'm looking forward to see 2021.
Was there any other comments?
Yeah, I just have one, and I don't, obviously, we don't get to talk to each other about this in the off time, and now I guess we don't even get to either look each other in the eyes because of me being sick here. But I still am not completely convinced on the addition in the organizational chart for the finance position. I'm wondering if that's something that gentlemen, that Mr. Rajapal and Mr. Unger feel that we need to dig deeper on and maybe take a look at that and remove that from this and discuss it next meeting, or if that's something you're prepared to go for.
I'm going to ask Mr. Weckbach to comment on that position.
Yes. So, each year we continue to look at our organization, figure out where we need to sort of beef things up and where we could be doing better. I think over this prior year, we've found several times, especially as COVID has occurred and, different types of leave and things of that nature, that given the small size of our finance shop, our finance director was spending a lot of time having to backfill for others. He was in the weeds far more than he needed to be. And because of that, the time hasn't been available to focus on the big picture of our finances. Adding this position would really allow us to take our finance department to the next level. It would allow us to ensure that we can get all of our reports done as fastly and promptly as possible. It'll ensure that we actually achieve a true level of checks and balances within the department. Over the years, due to the size of the department, there oftentimes isn't that true, unestablished check to ensure that the work isn't being checked by the person who's actually doing the work, if that makes sense. And so this allows us to clean up some loopholes, not loopholes per se, but allows us to clean up the department more. And I know that Finance Director Jeff McElravy is on the line right now. And so Jeff, I don't know if you want to add anything more to what I just said there.
Yes.
Good evening, board. Sorry, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have my camera up here. So yes, the rationale for the position is to take us from the next level, or to the next level. The idea being that we would move from an organization that is focused almost exclusively on processing transactions to being one that has the capacity to provide true decision support to you as members of the board and also to the administrator and the assistant administrator to make sure that we are positioning ourselves financially on a sound basis, not just year to year, but taking a longer term perspective, making sure that we are also implementing best practices in financial management and making sure that we've got redundancies in place. One of the things that causes me the most concern is how fragile we are as an organization. We have one person that is responsible for paying all of the bills for the entire township. We have one person that is responsible for payroll. We have one person that is responsible for all the money coming in the door. And that means that we aren't paying as much attention as I think we should to some of the more managerial types of things that we really need to have our eye on, and that we are also very susceptible to someone leaving the organization or having some prolonged period of absence where we're scrambling, and that's how mistakes get made. And I don't want to be in a position down the line coming to you to say that we made a mistake because we were too busy trying to get through the day-to-day instead of doing what we really ought to be doing for the organization.
Mr. McElreevy, as a trustee, we are here part-time, and a lot of times I'll stop by the building at night to get into my mailbox to sign any documents that are necessary. And I've looked back at the end of the hall, and you're sitting back there, and you bring a great skill set to our township, and I hope you've enjoyed your time here. And I do find that you're doing a lot of stuff that is not, I mean, you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing and a lot more. And I understand that the thinking behind this other position. And you're right. If that person catches one or two items in a year's time that we should be doing and that we missed, that position just paid for itself. We are dealing with a lot of millions of dollars, and I think it's important to have that spot in there. And with three trustees with three different ideas, we're always looking at things. And I think if we got 6 months or a year into it and you thought it wasn't right, I think you'd also bring it to our attention that, hey, maybe the position needs to be modified or done away with. So at this time, I intend to support it. But there is a lot going on, and I know there's been weeks that you've been here 70 hours plus, and I get it. So, and I want we want to give you the tools that you need to be successful. So,
Jeff, you hit right on the target, right on the nail. So you mentioned about best practice. Okay, now we are going towards 2021. We prioritize, things. We set up a goal. We want give the priority for the things need to be done. It's the best practice. How are you going to do it? Your financial background and Jeff background in budget and gave the great combination for you guys set up this strategic planning and budget. Then what else I want to say? I always say in many meetings, the evidence-based program. You set up a program, make sure we can able to quantify it, whether the program is worth it. You can evaluate the program. You're not dumping the money, something is not going to work. So you all come up with this strategic planning, and you gear that budget towards a plan, make it happen 2021. In the previous administration, the previous people were there. This is the first time I see, after me, Dane, Matt came over, we set up a strategic planning. The township going towards a goal, achieving a goal. Before, I never seen that. Years and years, I never seen that. Now, we all coming up together, all the leaders coming together, setting up, and we are pointing the budget towards that goal. I think that's a remarkable step.
Was there any other comments?
Thank you, Jeff McElravy, for the kind of the insight on that. One kind of follow up to what you said, though, with this new position. So one thing that I'd like to have, I don't know if this is even possible, but I know the degree to which you've been burning the midnight oil, so I haven't really pushed for it. Or the monthly financial reports. Is that something that I know it's done in cities and in villages, but the townships typically do that?
Yes, they do. And that is something that is part of the 2021 work plan.
Okay.
To not only bring some additional indicators to your dashboard about where the township is, budget versus actuals, and some other indicators of financial health or things that we need to, keep an eye on, but also in putting together something that I would refer to as a citizen's financial report, one that gets away from all the financial gobbledygook language and actually, explains things in a way that makes sense to your average citizen. And that's something I'm very eager to take on. But quite frankly, I mean, we don't have the bandwidth to be able to do that right now.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that, and I know that that's been a consistent challenge because you faced. I mean, if it's not payroll leaving, it's now we have to deal with what do we do with these CARES Act funds, and I mean it's been. I mean, you should be in the fire department because you've had to put out fires for the last 12 months. And I get that, and that's why I really haven't pushed hard on that. But I think that, while we're discussing this new position title, I think that would be a natural to provide. I'm not an accounting guy. I think I took college algebra like 5 times in college. The numbers get to be so big that it's hard to kind of deal with where everything's at. And I think your point is well taken, that it's an additional process redundancy check on things. But again, I just wanted to bring it up because I'm kind of once somebody says about expanding the organizational chart, my immediate reaction is to push back and make you prove to me that it should be done. And I'm satisfied that you, Mr. Weckbach, have done that. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, board. And along that note, the next couple of items are going to coincide with what you just adopted. So the very next agenda item is a resolution adopting temporary appropriations for 2021. So per the strategic plan and budget book that you just adopted, we've brought forward the resolution that will allow us to set temporary appropriations in place. From a operational administrative item perspective, we put temporary appropriations in place every year, and then in March we adopt permanent appropriations. So inevitably, in those first couple months of the year, there are some hiccups that pop up. That in the past, it was oftentimes the county would change the detail rate on us. Hopefully, that doesn't happen in the future, but this just allows us to have the opportunity to get it right, set the budget as firm as possible in March. But we have to have something in place at year end. So I recommend adoption of the resolution authorizing the adoption of temporary appropriations for the year 2021.
I recommend a resolution adopting temporary appropriations for 2021.
I'll second it.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? I would just like to point out this is part of a process, and at some point we'll be able to look at 2020 and know how we finished the year. When we went through this cycle 14 months ago, I recall that we finished 2019 with funds in excess of expenditures of just over $5 million, something in that range. So for those folks that are looking at the temporary appropriations and thinking, holy cow, this is just something that we need to do. And it's, I hope that we can get to the end of every budget year and be one of the few government entities in this county that shows financial stability and being ahead. Woe if the county of Hamilton and the city of Cincinnati couldn't do the things that we do here in Colerain Township. So is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, board. The next item, which also coincides with the strategic plan and budget book, is a resolution adopting an organizational chart and job descriptions. So in the budget book, we of course display what we anticipate our organizational chart to look like. The Board of Trustees also establishes that organizational chart formally via resolution, as well as all of our positions and job descriptions. This year, we did a couple things to the job descriptions that are noted in the memo attached to the agenda item. Specifically, we updated pay bands based on salary data that we pulled from the Center for Local Government Consortium. We made updates to various job descriptions to coincide with some role changes that we have and some org chart shifts. And then we've created some new descriptions for new positions. Of note, we have decided to split the fleet mechanic role into a fleet mechanic 1 and 2. As we posted for the original fleet mechanic role, we were having a hard time finding applicants that met our standard as well as all the criteria for the position. We realized that by splitting the position into 2 separate positions, we might have a better pool of applicants. And so that's the one major change in that function contemplated here. Happy to answer any questions that you all may have, but I recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we adopt the resolution adopting the organizational chart and job descriptions.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? I think there's only, as far as additional people, there's the 2 part-time folks to go out and remediate litter problems, which were 2 20-hour positions. And then the 2 that we moved from zoning to economic development, which is no change in census. And then the 1 for Mr. McElravy's department.
There was the one for Mr. McElravy's department, and then there was an additional position in the Parks Department that had been discussed and contemplated with last year's book and was brought forward yet again.
And our total employees in that department was a one-time high in the 20s, and right now it's 6, 7.
Yeah, in terms of full-time employees, if you bear with me a moment, certainly if you guys continue conversation, I can actually pull that up on our transparency site and give you an exact answer.
I think it's a third of what it was 20 years ago. Something like that.
It is significantly lower.
Right, and that's just been through a lot of attrition, and I've heard from some of the employees about that, and I've said, one thing here in Colerain Township, even with all the things that have happened this year, we haven't had to lay anybody off because we do run kind of lean. And I can tell you what everybody here does. And it isn't an organization where I look at people and go, what in the world do you do here? I know what everybody does here as far as their jobs, and it's easy to ask them and figure out what it is. So if Mr. McElravy needs help, I support that. And one of the things that we've done that's not really done in a whole lot of other places is we have this and we have job descriptions, and past boards of trustees didn't prioritize such a thing, and you can go back and look in the 90s and the 2000s, and I went back and reviewed all those minutes from all those years worth of meetings, and I never saw such a thing. So I think it's a great thing to have this so people can get a snapshot of what our organization is.
And Dan, to answer your question, the high water mark in public services was 28 full-time employees in 2009. And currently today, we have an authorized strength of 17 full-time employees across both the Roads Division, Parks Division, Community Center, and then certainly the managerial support, Ms. O'Connell.
Right. So, I mean, that's for people that look at us and go, you keep growing the organization. Well, no, we don't. We are pretty lean there, and I think our men and women do a great job keeping up the parks, and lots of exciting things to come in 21. So was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, board. The next item on the agenda is a motion to authorize the township administrator to execute a collective bargaining agreement with the FOP Blue Unit. So the reason that in the board packet, the actual agreement is not included is we had been working back and forth with the FOP, both units, up until late yesterday. And we were able to come to what we believe is an agreement that both parties are in favor of. And I emailed a copy of the finalized agreement to all of you yesterday evening. So you should have received that and hopefully had a chance to review it. The FOP Blue contract is with anyone at the rank of police officer. So there are technically 2 FOP contracts in the police department, one for the sergeants and then one for the officers. The big thing that I think a lot of us focus on in these agreements is the salaries and the compensation changes. In this FOP Blue contract, it contemplates a 4-3-2. So it's a 4% increase in year 1, a 3% increase in year 2, and a 2% increase in year 3. However, in order to make those dollars work, because we had a very collaborative approach with the bargaining units, we realized that we needed to add an extra step. So now officers have to take one additional step, one additional year before they reach that top out pay. Kind of a unique thing, doesn't always happen, but I was excited that we were able to come to a consensus that made financial sense for the township as well as for the bargaining unit. I recommend adoption of the agreement with the FOP Blue.
I'll motion to authorize the execution of a collective bargaining agreement with FOP Blue as provided.
I will
I
second.
second it.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion by Walt, second by Raj. Any discussion? Jeff, I saw that yesterday, and you and I just discussed the small changes in wording with that final draft that you've brought before us, and I am in agreement with it. And with the extra step for people that might not understand what that is, the savings we get by putting a step between those 2 final steps allows us to give the increase at that level. And unlike a lot of other, and I keep comparing us to some of our other organizations, I think we're showing great support for the men and women of our police department here. And I think we have top quality people, and I want them to stick around. And I think we provide great policing, especially in these times where not everybody is the biggest police supporters, but I'm proud to be one that is. And it's not just money; it's a lot of other things. It's giving the guys the confidence to know that when something happens, like our police engagement of a very nasty suspect the other day, I think it's critical that our officers know that this board of trustees does not throw them under the bus, that we stand behind them, that they know that they can do their jobs and not have to look over their shoulder. So I'm proud to support this. Is there other discussion?
That's it. Yeah, Dana, I really totally agree with you, what you mentioned about our police department, and they're doing an outstanding job, and they're keeping our township really, really fantastic, safe, and our residents are very happy with their performance. And also, as you mentioned, when you look at the salary of other police department, and we need to try to compensate, make sure they deserve this salary, very competitive salary. We also can retain the good people in our township. I think our department is doing a great job. I think Jeff Weckbach, Jeff Mills did a great job in negotiating with the FOP and make an agreement, help them as they deserve. Appreciate the great work, Mike. Jeff, I heard you also won the award for your big contract writer.
I'm not quite sure off the top of my head what you're referring to, Raj, but I will take the kudos.
Yeah.
All right. Did you have any comments, Matt?
Just echo what everyone said. Let's take care of the men and women in blue.
Mr. Baker, would you please call for a vote?
Mr. Rajgopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Next item.
Thank you, board. The next item is a motion to authorize the township administrator to execute a collective bargaining agreement with FOP Gold. So this is we negotiated with our sergeants as well. The timelines align up. The only real difference there for the most part outside of this agreement covering the sergeants is certainly the compensation and a couple other small items. The sergeants wanted to just keep their pay as it was in the past, with it being 16% higher than the highest paid officer. And so that was the compensation agreement that we were able to reach with them. And I recommend adoption of the motion.
A motion to authorize execution of collective bargaining agreement with FOP Gold.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? And my comments would be the same as my comments on item D.
Absolutely.
And with no discussion.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Rich.
yeah, Dan. I think our lieutenants, the supervisors, doing a great job in running our department.
Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajgopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, board. Just for your knowledge, after this meeting, I'll send an email out to our FOP representations to let them know of your vote. And then they will shortly thereafter in the coming days take this to the vote of their representation. And for the public's knowledge, once this is finalized, everything's buttoned up and everything's signed off, we'll make this available on the website because I'm sure there's some that are itching to see it.
Jeff, a quick technical note on this meeting. Sometimes these Zoom calls are scheduled for a particular amount of time. And I know, Dana, you're monitoring this. We're at the 2-hour mark just to make sure we don't drop out. So I'm sure you've got it covered. Go ahead.
We've got it covered.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Here we are in 2020 talking to each other through a little mini screen. Please go ahead, Mr. Weckbach.
Sure. The next item is a motion to establish a merit pool of $86,000 for the non-union township employees. So every year we have employees that are both collectively bargained, so through CBAs like we just adopted, and those who are not. For those who are not, we try to bring forward a merit pool toward the end of the year. Basically, after you all establish a merit pool at whatever level you try to establish it at, we then go through a performance evaluation process. I know that to the extent that you all want us to, potentially do a public presentation on our performance evaluation process, we would be happy to do that. But at the end of their performance evaluations, we compare our employees not only with their scores internally, but where they are compensated currently compared to the market. We want to try to make sure that we have our employees compensated at a fair level and that we're also, awarding pay raises based off of merit and the actual work that they were able to do. So with this motion, an $86,000 merit pool represents a 3% merit pool, and that includes all of the additional fringe benefits associated with the salaries. So with that, I will recommend adoption of the motion.
A motion to establish a merit pool of $86,000 for the non-union township employees.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to get it to the floor. Jeff, per our phone conversation recently, a lot of our salaries, well, first of all, the $86,000, so that folks at home can understand, that $86,000 covers all the benefits and the retirement contributions and everything. Previous to last year, that was not included in that amount. And I brought that up last year that, hey, this isn't what the real cost is. So that $86,000 captures the real cost. That said, and be it we just approved a collective bargaining agreement for our police. Raises are, and I've brought this up before, and people are maybe tired of hearing it, but out in the world of private industry, especially this year, there's nobody getting raises, and there's people that are glad to be hanging on to their jobs. And I know last year when we did this, some of the raises were 1%, 2%, 3%, and a couple of them were 10 to 13% to bring the salaries for those positions into line. I would expect that as these evaluations are made, that 86,000 is a maximum amount. that doesn't mean we need to spend it. So my recommendation is you and Mr. Mills do these evaluations, which every employee deserves an evaluation, that we kind of limit any increases to 2 or 3%. You know, we did all the realignment of those salary positions when we did this last year. So that is my comment on it. I do intend to support it, but I don't think we need, and granted, I'd love to give that to our employees, but there's the other end of it where there's some other priority things that have shown themselves over this past year that we need to take care of. So as you do these reviews, you know, if somebody's good for 2 or 3%, which is kind of what the police just got, that's fine. I'm not really interested in seeing anything higher than that. So is there any other comments? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, board. Our next item tonight is a motion to authorize Township Administrator to execute service order with KZF for design of Colerain Avenue streetscape project. So if you all recall, several meetings ago, we approved various master services agreements with various engineering firms and design firms. This service order before you will engage KZF in the design of the Colerain Avenue sidewalk project that will extend from John Rose to Shady Crest. The total cost of this project is contemplated in the 2021 strategic plan and budget book. This grant was actually funded, or this project is actually being funded through a transportational alternatives grant from OKI. I know that sometimes we get a little bit of sticker shock sometimes when we see service orders of this magnitude. Something that I wanted to share when it comes to these types of projects is oftentimes the design and engineering work associated with these projects runs anywhere from 10 to 20%. If you paid special attention to the budget book, when we look at capital projects, we had anticipated design and engineering for this project to be about $281,000. So the proposal that you have before you is certainly less than that. And if you even wanted to look further at the Pippin Road sidewalk project, the estimate provided by ODOT was a 20% design and engineering estimate. So I certainly believe that the quote and the agreement that is before you is a reasonable dollar request. And with that, I will recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to execute service order with KZF for the design of the Colerain Avenue streetscape project, which is the area down by John Rose that you've described.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Dan. Excuse me. 1 second, please. Yeah, I discussed, Jeff, with you about this and why the amount is so high. And also ask your questions also, do we get any other bids on this? And you mentioned to me because you seek that, you sought that other opinions on this. And also you felt like this is the best job they can do. Actually, it's a 10% of the project spending. And also a very interesting point that you brought it to me, that is that KZF, they already did the corridor plan. They're familiar with the what's going on in the Colerain Avenue and all the plans they have. And this gives them more viability to how they can do it better technically, like you mentioned about engineering, how they can coincide with this plan and the Colerain corridor plan. So that's a very interesting point that you brought it. So tell me about this, what you explained to me.
Yeah, so to emphasize kind of what you said there, Raj, I mean, if we all recall the Colerain Avenue corridor study, we had hired KZF to kind of lead that effort. And throughout that study, they recommended a number of streetscape design, sidewalk, and other improvements, lighting improvements, things like that, that we should be attempting to implement all up and down the corridor. Given the fact that they helped to author that plan and make those recommendations, I believe that they're very well suited to understand what the needs are of that area and exactly what types of, streetscape buffers and lights and sidewalk block depths and things like that should be included in those areas. And I think it's a natural extension of that project.
Thanks. And you also mentioned about the amount they're charging is pretty much lesser than what you would anticipate if any other contractor will come to do this work.
Yeah,
right?
when we were first drafting this, even when we submitted our cost to say OKI, we were anticipating $200,000 for design for this project, and I believe that the agreement before you is $166,000. So it's less than what we were anticipating when we were in the early phases of this project.
Okay, thank you.
Was there any other discussion?
None.
No.
Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, board. Our next item for consideration is a motion to permit the township administrator to execute an agreement with Electrata for electrical vehicle charging station at 4200 Springdale Road. So at a prior couple of meetings, you probably recall that we had a motion to enter into a grant proposal with Electrata where they would seek out some of the VW settlement money to actually install electric vehicle charging stations on site at 4200. We are still awaiting the results of that grant, but to the extent that we are successfully awarded that grant, we would like to be able to engage and get this agreement off the ground as soon as possible. And so that's why this is before you today. There are 4 spots that we're looking at in the 4200 parking lot, and conveniently enough, they are located right next to an electrical box. So there's going to be very minimal to no earthwork that will need to be done in our parking lot. We're not going to have huge swaths of our pavement tore up. I'm really excited about the partnership here. And to the extent that electrical vehicles become the next big thing, there's even a chance for us to make some dollars off of this agreement in the long run per what is outlined in the cost sharing proposal. And I recommend adoption of this motion and happy to answer any questions.
I'll motion to permit the township administrator to execute an agreement with Electrata for electric vehicle charging station at 4200 Springdale Road.
I will second it.
I'll second it. Okay, good.
The motion by Waller, second by Unger. Is there any discussion? Yes. Mr. Weckbach, this will not be constructed unless we get the grant, and the grant will cover any pavement restoration and any restripe or redesign of our parking spaces to accommodate this. And so this is just allowing you to go ahead pending actual receipt of the grant dollars before we start.
Correct. And to be completely blunt and open here, Electrata even approached us to say, even if the grant doesn't go through, they would be willing to consider installing these at no cost to the township. So to the extent that we aren't awarded the grant, I would anticipate that you all would hear from me again, asking if you were still in support of moving forward without a grant, fully at the cost and expense of the contractor.
Sure. And for somebody to pull in, and there are folks out there that have electric cars, this is a metered service where they would pay for that electric. This isn't something we're giving away.
Correct. Yes, there would be an app on their phone that they would have downloaded, and it would work and function in the same functionality as other electric charging stations that are available in the region. I believe that there's one in Walmart North in Colerain, and then there may be 1 or 2 at a couple of the car dealerships in Colerain Township. But outside of that, there aren't any that are on sort of publicly owned property.
Was there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, board. The next item on the agenda is a motion to appoint Trustee Unger as the representative to the Board of Directors of the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments and Administrator Jeff Mills as the alternate. This is essentially the same two individuals who have been serving in these roles since 2018. Mr. Mills has actually served as the alternate since 2016. I recommend adoption of the motion.
A motion to appoint Trustee Unger as a representative to the Board of Directors of the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments and Administrator Mills as the alternate.
I second it. Good luck, Dan.
Thank you. I believe that we are required to offer our representative to that organization and have that in place before our first January meeting as we have it scheduled. So that's why it's on the agenda tonight. And I would comment, this is not a paid position. This is just a volunteer position, and I'm happy to take the appointment. Mr. Mills attends most of those meetings, and a lot of he's in there lobbying for the township to get these various grants. And we talk about improving our subdivision streets and that, and this is where a lot of it comes from. So I think our involvement is critical there. So I appreciate the motion and second of my fellow trustees. Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
I accept, so aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. Our next item is a resolution adopting a modified telecommunication policy. So as you all know, we operate and perform our roles according to the policy that you all set forth. One of the things that is in our policy, specifically in this, is information related to cell stipends. With the change in roles of Fleet Mechanic 2 or Fleet Mechanic into a Fleet Mechanic 2 and 1, one of the big differences in those two roles relates to on-call status. Given that the Fleet Mechanic 1 would never be required to be on call, we don't feel that there is a nexus toward a warrant of a cell stipend. And so the recommendation here is to change the terminology in the policy to coincide with that org chart change and to coincide with the need for cell phone usage. And I recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we adopt a resolution adopting a modified telecommunication policy.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? I would only comment that the trustees maintain cell phones out of our own pockets. I don't believe either one of, I've never taken compensation for my phone. It's my own private phone. I put that number out there, 404-3057. If any township residents have any questions or comments or complaints, I get all three regularly. But we pay for the trust, just so the public knows, the trustees pay for their own phones. So is there any other discussion? Hearing none.
No.
Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. And our next item, I'm going to allow Jeff McElravy to introduce.
Good evening once again, Board. The next item is a resolution to amend appropriations for the year 2020. This is on page 520 of your packet. And for some reason, the transmittal memo that included the rationale for these changes did not make it into the packet. So my apologies for that. What I will do is take a little bit of time here to walk through each of the amendments to the appropriations so that you have good context before you need to make a decision. The first change in appropriations is for our zoning fund. And what that is a reduction in appropriations of $31,000 to $443,853.40. And that is a reduction to meet existing resources. The second amendment is for the coronavirus relief funds, the CARES funding that we received from the state of Ohio. This is an increase in appropriations of $60,324.58. And the reason for the increase in the appropriations is because we were successful in receiving a redistribution of unused funds from elsewhere in the state. That was about $58,000. And then also there have been some interest earnings as of the first of this month in the fund. So that those two combined are the reason for the increase in the appropriation to the fund. The third fund where there is a change in appropriations is for the coronavirus relief funds that we received from Hamilton County. And that is a modest increase of $164.54. And that is a result of interest earnings in the fund over that period. I should note that one of the requirements of the CARES program overall is that any interest that is earned in those funds has to be used for purposes that are eligible under the CARES legislation passed by Congress, and also the guidance that has come out subsequently from U.S. Treasury Department. And then finally, the last change in appropriations is for the TIF account for the Kroger project on Springdale Road. That is a reduction in appropriations of $4,608.54. And that is to align the appropriation with available resources. There was a reallocation process that happened through the county auditor's office this year that was the result of a removal of a parcel from the TIF area. And that has changed our forecast for just how much would be coming to the fund as a result of the TIF. And this change aligns our appropriation with the existing resources. So the staff recommendation is approval of the resolution authorizing the adoption of amended appropriations for the year 2020.
I would motion that we pass a resolution to amend the 2020 year-end appropriations.
I second it.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none.
None.
Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, board.
Thank you,
Thank you.
board. And just real quick, I wanted to emphasize something that was just said there by Mr. McElravy, which was that we actually received more funding from the state, from other communities, because they were unable to spend their CARES dollars, and we were able to spend our CARES dollars. So I really appreciate all the hard work that Jeff McElravy put into making sure that we were not only able to spend those dollars, but spend it in the right way, and to help the township to ensure that we can stay on sound financial footing for the foreseeable future. All right, so the last item of new business that I have for you all tonight is a motion to accept Ohio Plan's proposal for property and casualty liability insurance. So every year our policy expires on December 31st. So we typically go out through our broker, similar to what we do with our health insurance. We have a broker that works on our behalf. They go into the marketplace, they negotiate rates, and they bring us back with a proposal. In this case, the best proposal that they brought back was for us to remain with the Ohio plan. This results in a 1.7% increase in our premiums. What we were seeing in the overall marketplace across the country was closer to a 10% increase in premiums. COVID is certainly attributed to that in a lot of communities. I think we're very fortunate to be at a 1.7%, and I recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion to accept Ohio Plan's proposal for property and casualty liability insurance.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing
Jeff,
none.
as you mentioned, I'm sorry, as you mentioned just now, you also have analyzed the other insurance, how much competitive price we can get.
Yeah, so this is a very technical type of skill set, and that's where Highland comes in for us. They actually go out to the marketplace and they try to negotiate with various firms You know, that's their bread and butter. They know that industry on a day in and day out basis. It's very similar to how we do our health insurance, where we have a broker that operates on our behalf. And they go out to the marketplace and try to find us the best rates for the township. And we felt like this proposal made sense. And that's why it's before you tonight.
Okay.
Was there any other discussion?
All right. None.
Matt?
Mm-mm,
None?
None for me.
I was waiting till you took a drink to ask a question. So good for me. Okay, Mr. Baker, would you please call for a vote?
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, board.
Aye. Sorry.
Mr. Weckbach?
Yep, and so that concludes all of our new business. There are no existing items for old business. And with that, I would recommend that we approve the consent agenda. On the consent agenda tonight, we have the hiring of 3 full-time employees in the fire department. This would be Tyler Humphreys, Morgan Mason, and Owen Schneider. They would all start a probationary period at a rate of $47,733 per year. So that's $47,733 per year. I would also recommend the hire of 2 part-time firefighter EMTs. This would be Brendan Blair and Albert Freytag. They would start at a rate of $14.15 per hour. And then I also recommend an acceptance of a donation from Home Depot in the amount of $1,000. And I thank you, Home Depot, for that. And then also 2 donations, one for $300 to the police department and one for $300 to the fire department from Mr. Matt Wallard. And I thank you, Mr. Wallard, for the support of our departments. And I recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. President?
Yes, did you want to pull those 2 items out, Matt?
Yeah, I want a motion to divide the question and put D and E separate because I'll be abstaining on those 2 items.
Okay, I think I can just go ahead and motion to approve items A, B, and C.
Okay.
And so I motion that we approve item A, the new hire full-time firefighters, item B, new hire part-time firefighter emergency medical technicians, item C, a donation acceptance from Home Depot of $1,000. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been motioned and seconded for A, B, and C. Is there any discussion? Thank you, Home Depot.
We thank the people. Yeah, thank Home Depot. Appreciate.
And with no other discussion, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote on items A, B, and C.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
And then on items D and E, the donation acceptance to the police department for $300 and the fire department for $300 from Mr. Matt Waller. I would motion that we accept those donations.
I'll second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Thank you, Mr. Waller.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt, for your generosity and supporting our department. Your sincere thanks to you.
You're welcome.
I believe you wanted to abstain, Matt, so I'll go ahead and ask Mr. Baker to call for a vote on those 2 items.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Abstain.
Thank you. And that is the item 11 consent items, and that brings us to item 12, the fiscal office report.
Thank you, board. First, we had a couple of liquor board changes that we received and we have filed with the Ohio Division of Liquor Control. One was for B&D Asian Plaza, DBA Galbraith Food Mart. The other was Logan's Roadhouse 2 LLC, DBA Logan's Roadhouse. Neither Chief Denny or Mr. Iona thought it was necessary for a hearing on those, so those have been filed and sent to the Ohio Division of Liquor Control. And then lastly, just a brief update on records requests. We have received a total since April 1st. We've received 243, putting us close to 400 for the year. There are 34 active, so we have fulfilled 209 public records requests. We have also gone back through 2018, 2019 to clean up some old records requests that, as it turns out, we did fulfill. However, they just were not closed out in CSR for whatever reasons. We have received some feedback from some individuals that they got the notification that the public record request was fulfilled, but that the request was not attached. I will be sending out to those individuals the link that Mr. Weckbach provided, or the way that they can go online, because each one of those have been fulfilled and in fact have been uploaded, and so they can see the fulfillment of that in the CSR system by just clicking on service requests and typing in the HR number that they were assigned for that. So that in itself was about 150 to 160 additional public records requests. So essentially what we've done since April 1st is fulfilled about 370 public records requests since April 1st. So definitely a big number, and I have to give a special thanks to Glenna Carter and Jeff Weckbach for the work they've done in helping clean up the old ones as well. So with that, that's all I have.
Thank you, Jeff. And, part of our proposed increase of census in the financial department might be to help chase down some of those items, because I'm sure you have to go to Mr. McElreevy once in a while for some of that information. So we're certainly glad and proud to fulfill all those requests, but there is an expense to the township for that. So our next item would be adjournment. I don't know if any of the trustees had any other comments, but I will go ahead and they can offer those during the motion for adjournment. So I would motion that we adjourn this meeting.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I wish everyone, the township employees and all the residents, a Merry Christmas, safe and healthy holidays.
Mr. Wallert?
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of echo that. This one is for, I don't think this is exactly the age group watching, but for the 15 to 25-year-old types. This is a hard time for many of our grandparents. I don't have mine anymore. But one of the things I've noticed being in quarantine now twice is it does get lonely. Reach out and give your grandparents a call, give your parents a call, let them know you're out there. Even if it's to talk about something silly. Everybody needs that human contact, and we're getting ready to enter a couple of rough months. We need to take care of each other. So God bless everyone, and have a good Christmas and Happy New Year.
And I would comment about the wonder of being able to get these meetings out, and I'd like to thank Waycross. I think technically this has gone well, and if anybody's internet's running a little slow, you can always refresh to watch this meeting. And as far as the 15 to 25 age group, Matt, you're right. That's a demographic we need to work on, getting more involvement in watching these meetings. But I would like to point out that a friend of the family, Becca, is watching, and she is way out in the state of Kansas. So I'd like to say hello to her. And she's critiquing what we have to say here this evening. And I would, a lot of good things have happened this year, and don't let all the bad overshadow that. And I'd like to wish all of our staff and all of our citizens the happy holidays and Merry Christmas. And thank you for being a part of our meetings. So with no other discussion, please call on a vote for adjournment.
Mr. Rajgopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
This meeting of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees is adjourned at 9:34 p.m. on Tuesday, December 8th, 2020. Thank you for watching.